Be sure to hop on over to the Spiritual Broadcast Network. It's the go-to place for all things spiritual. You'll discover internet television shows that you won't find anywhere else. You can also choose from hundreds of hours of spiritual documentaries and movies. You'll enjoy on-demand and live internet television programming 24/7. Best of all, we add new dramas, comedies, talk, and reality shows and more on a daily basis. So why spend countless hours searching the web when you can quickly find just what you want on the Spiritual Broadcast Network? Good evening. Welcome to the Spiritual But Not Religious Show. I'm your host, George Lewis. I've got a really great guest this evening. We're going to have a good time and learn some stuff about the art of loving the part of you that's unlovable. My guest tonight is going to be Shaeri Richards. She's the author of Dancing with Your Dragon. But before I give you any more on Shaeri or bring her on the show, I want to talk with you a bit about our website, what you can find there. We're working really hard at being your spiritual place to go. Looking for something in the way of about anything spiritual, you should be able to find it on our site. We've got over 400 hours of video, documentaries, movies, live shows that are archived there. So spend some time, take a look around. If you're watching this in the archived version, check down below. You'll find a link take you right to our website, sbnvideo.tv. Shaeri is the author of Dancing with Your Dragon and the art of loving your unlovable self. Shaeri, are you with us?
I'm right here. Hi, George.
Welcome. I've been looking forward to our conversation.
Me too.
I'm going to tell you, I have thoroughly enjoyed your book. Well written. It's a great read. And, I have written a book myself that dealt with the shadow self. So I'm familiar with, what we're dealing with here. And, what you have here is remarkable. The amount of research you've done, the way that you bring that research into the story and your story are wonderful. So before we get started, a lot of people are going to come and they're going to watch the first part of this and they're going to want to know, how do we get a hold of that book? So tell us where they can buy your book and give us your website and any other information you want to start off with.
Well, I'd be happy to. They can visit my website, dancingwithyourdragon.com, just like it sounds, dancingwithyourdragon.com. And you can buy the book from the website. That's one way to do it. It's available through Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Just about any bookstore can order it for you. Lots of ways to get it. If you do go to my website, I do have in the top right-hand corner of my website a little link where you can put in your name and your email address, and you'll receive a free meditation called Opening Your Heart, which will come to you to download. So I invite people to do that, and thank you for giving me that opportunity right up front.
Absolutely. There's another thing I'm sure that you don't get a chance to talk about, but I'm going to give you an opportunity now. You in the early part of your book, you talk about the importance of reading the introductory portions. Tell us why.
I spent so much of my life, I'm a Gemini, and basically I know sun sign astrology can be a little bit surfacey, but I'm an astrologer also, and it goes much deeper than that.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, it does, absolutely. I was in agreement with you.
Yeah, it certainly does. But anyway, Geminis do tend to try to move forward and get a little surfacey, and I was always just jumping around in books and never really taking time to read introductions and prepare myself for the material. And I missed a lot of things that way. And so when I wrote my book, I realized there's a purpose for writing an introduction. So I just wanted to encourage people to really start at the beginning, take in all of the information up front, and kind of set the tone for what they're going to come up against in the rest of the book. Because what I'm writing about, George, is I'm really writing about energy, right? And
absolutely.
How you get present to energy. And that is something that is very experiential. So reading about it and taking it in on the mental plane is not really the whole story. So I wanted to set the tone for that and encourage people to start at the beginning. And
as you can tell, I did. And
yes,
and there's important information there. I suggest that anybody who reads your book do exactly that. So you've got a really interesting story, and I think before we get into your work, my viewers tend to want to know like who's the writer? What gives them the right to write this book, and why should I pay any attention to what they have to say? Why don't you give us, a bit of your childhood background and your life with your mother and what your spiritual life was? And you don't need to condense it, just take your time with it because I think it's really important.
Well, I was born into a family with a Jewish tradition, so I was raised Jewish. I was a very spiritual person from the time I was, way, way little. I was always a spiritual being, always very attracted to that. And as I kind of grew up and developed a little bit, I found that my parents were not really following the Jewish tradition so much, so we decided that I wouldn't have to continue that way either. And eventually my mother actually left the tradition completely and went off to India and ended up with a guru. And so she spent about 15 years in India and followed that path, and eventually her chosen passed away and left his reign of power to 21 people, and she was one of them. And she eventually started a mystery school to carry on his teaching. And I was living in Sedona, Arizona at the time. Now, to back up a little bit, when I was 19 years old, my mother did something kind of unusual. She got involved with my 20-year-old boyfriend. And it's a long story that I do tell in the book. I don't know how much you want me to go into here on the show, but...
You're welcome to give us as much of that as you'd like. I think it's, the core of that story right there, it's really important, I think, to the work that you've done.
Yeah, it was a very painful experience for me. What happened is I, at the time, got involved with drugs because I grew up in the 70s, and that's what was happening back then. Lost the call.
Yeah, we lost your video. What you want to do is call us back, and and be sure and mute your Skype audio once you're back up.
Okay. So is it calling you?
Well, you should be back here shortly.
Okay. Anyway, so back in the 70s, everyone was experimenting with drugs, and I was no different. And I decided to take an LSD trip. And when I took this trip, it was kind of an interesting experience because it popped me into another dimension. It popped me into a higher realm. And so I'm going to answer your call now.
Well, I had a spiritual experience like that myself, a couple of them, where I got popped into a whole different realm. And it has a profound effect on your whole psyche when that happens.
It was amazing. So are we back on with the video now?
We don't seem to be. I'm not sure what's going on with the Skype part of it. Now you can see part of why we use the landline for audio.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, you never know what the internet's going to, where it's going to leave you or bring you.
Well, call me again, Tom. You called me, so call me back again, and I'll see if that works. And, oh, wait, let's try this. Okay, this might work. This might do it.
There we go. She's up.
Up and up. Oh, okay.
Okay, good.
Sensitive story here where we're having to deal with all these technical things. But the whole point of it is that LSD, many people have done research and written about what it does to you in terms of contacting higher dimensions. And that's what happened to me. I was popped into this place of profound love and acceptance, this amazing place that I had never really experienced before in my life. Because for some reason, for most of my life, I just didn't like myself.
Right.
And so I had this experience with the LSD. I never came down from it. I was high for maybe 3 weeks in these other realms. It scared my mother, I guess. She had me locked up in a mental hospital. And while I was there, she got involved with my boyfriend, who was 20 years old. I was 19 at the time. So...
and your mother was what, probably...
about 40.
Yep.
She had me pretty young. And she was, I like to call her one of the first cougars, right?
She was a cougar example, huh?
Right. She was ahead of her time she was a groundbreaking cougar. So I don't know what's going on with the Skype thing.
Well, I think we got you. We're good. We're good. Don't worry about it. Everything is good. We see you. You look great.
Okay.
Everything's fine.
Okay, awesome. So groundbreaking cougar, my mother, beautiful woman, and but obviously very, very painful for me.
Right.
She got involved with my boyfriend. They were together for like 2 years. And it put this kind of dagger in my heart because I really, really loved my mother. She was like my favorite person on the planet. And I wanted to be like her. I wanted to emulate her. And now I've had this experience where something has happened that has, left a bad taste in my mouth around it. So the whole point of my work was to find a way to forgive my mother, obviously. That was part of it. To forgive myself whatever blame I took on. But even more importantly, what I came to realize is the whole journey with my mother and this experience was designed, I believe, to take me deeper in and to help me find what I call my inner mother, my connection with the divine mother.
Right.
Because I was dependent on my mother. I wanted my mother, even though she never fulfilled this for me. I wanted her to take care of my feelings. I wanted her to make me feel better. I wanted her to hug me and hold me and love me and tell me I was a good girl and help me understand why my boyfriend didn't love me or why I was having a fight with him if that's what was going on. I wanted her to do those things for me.
So you really didn't get any nurturing growing up either, did you?
Well, that's the weird thing about it. My mother was actually an amazingly loving person.
Wow.
And people, in fact, when I was going through the years after this experience with my mother, and I would tell my friends about it, and I would say to them, this happened, and they would say, oh, your mother, she's just awful, what a villain. And I'd say, no, if you ever meet my mother, you're going to just love her. And they would say, no way, no way. And sure enough, she'd come to town and visit, and I'd introduce them, and they'd be like, oh my God, you were right, she's so great, I really love your mother.
So she's charming.
Charming and carrying a lot of love. You have to realize she was also the founder of a spiritual community here in Sedona with, more than 100 people in town and many others around the world that saw her as their spiritual leader and totally adored her. But it was more difficult, I think, for her with her intimate children, with her individual children, because she didn't choose the traditional role of mother. She left us and, went on her own journey. And in doing that, she also gave us a lot of freedom to find our own personal individual path.
Sure.
It goes both ways. So, the whole piece of my work is like you just can't judge. Everyone always wanted to judge my mother, and she seems like the bad guy in a way. But it was more about my lesson and what do I take from it, right?
So do you believe that we choose our life and the people that we, our parents and that kind of thing?
I do. I decided that, I was presented with that information pretty young in my teens, that was a possible way to look at life. And I just decided it made sense because it gives me a personal responsibility. And it gives me some freedom to overcome what I've been given as challenges. Otherwise, you're just a victim of circumstances, right? So if you can't find the meaning in your life, you can't find the purpose for what your life path has been, then life is pretty depressing.
Well, I think that, based on, even some more of the details in your story with your mother and your boyfriend or ex-boyfriend at the time, to be able to come to that kind of forgiveness really speaks powerfully for you, Shaeri, powerfully for your work.
Yeah, because otherwise I was suffering. And, my book was written to help other people, but the first person that it helped was me.
Well, had you reached this place of forgiveness with your mother prior to writing the book or during that process?
Well, actually, the process of writing the book actually took me deeper and deeper and deeper into the levels of pain and actually helped me come to the complete healing.
Uh-huh.
Writing the book was actually a healing experience for me. And it's not, just so people don't get the wrong idea, there is one chapter about this story with me and my mother that sets up the whole idea of the dragon and what is the dragon and how do you come to terms with it. For me, a lot of it was about my own personal anger inside. So I was very angry at my mother, but I didn't give myself permission to experience that anger because I'm a spiritual person and
Right.
people are not angry, right?
Yeah, no guilt here, right? We don't do anything that the Catholic Church does in these things, right?
Right. So there was no space in my being for this energy to have an expression, and so I had to repress it. And it takes a lot of energy to repress things, to hold our emotions down. A great deal of my work, Dancing with Your Dragon, is about learning to get in touch with your own emotions. What are you feeling?
Well, until we get in touch with our own emotions, we can't be in touch with our intuition. And if we aren't in touch with our intuition, we can't be in touch with the divine, can we?
You just said that so beautifully, George. That is exactly right. Because to me, the emotions are a link to the divine.
Right.
And the intuition is a feminine type of receptivity, which I think comes through the emotional body. So there are other forms of connecting with the divine. I think there's the great mind, the big mind, the thinking part of the mind of God, or
right.
that thing. But for me, it's a heart-based experience.
Absolutely, and I have that same path myself. It's definitely through that intuitive gut place down here. That's my bellyometer, I guess.
Your bellyometer, I love that. So you must have taken that from my dragonometer, or did you have it before?
No, I had it before.
Then we're still on the same.
We're just talking the same language, is all. Just different words.
Yeah.
So tell us just a brief idea, because I want to really talk more about your work and your book. But I think it's important. Your mother actually taught you, things from this mystery school. So tell us just a little bit about what kind of teachings we were talking about.
Well, I spent 10 years in her mystery school here in Sedona, and I learned how to go deeper inside and work with these energies in a way that I had not learned prior to that. I'd done much work beforehand, of course, many, many years of therapy. I went into astrology as a tool for helping me. I studied the Kabbalah, lots of dance and movement, and any kind of way I could go in to try to integrate these parts of myself that got disintegrated, disconnected because of the pain, the repression, the self-judgment, the blame, the guilt, all these kinds of things. So in her school, the main path I learned meditation, and I learned to connect with the mind. But more importantly, not from my mother personally, but from one of the main teachers at the school, I really learned the art of feeling. And I tended to be most of my life more connected in the mental, more approaching my life from a thinking realm, but I'm an incredibly feeling person, and I had disconnected myself from that part of myself. And just like you said earlier, when you want to connect with the divine, the feelings will take you there, right? Higher.
Absolutely.
But you can't deny the lower feelings. That's the thing. If you've got anger inside, or resentment, or hatred, or vengeance, or all of these things, you can't just pretend they're not there. You have to find a way, what I call unconditional love, the unconditional love of the heart. It's like a space that allows those energies to be there so that the feelings can move. And then with awareness, you can start to allow them to move through you so that they can then transmute and release and not run your life anymore. But to judge yourself for having them, or to project them onto other people, or to just try to get away from them, going up into your head, or even trying to escape out of your body into the divine without incorporating the human realm, I found none of those things work.
That's been my experience. They don't work at all.
Yeah.
Well, and if you think about it, we're dealing with energy, right?
Right.
Energy, quite naturally, has a polarity. It's got a positive and a negative. And we have a positive and a negative. So, to deny part of that's like taking a battery and cutting it in half, throwing away the negative part, and saying, okay, work. Everything is great. Well, it doesn't work.
It doesn't work at all.
It doesn't work, no.
Right.
I found I had to, really get down in deep with that dark part of me, own it, come to a place where I could put my arm around it and love it as a part of me, and just tell it it's not in charge.
Absolutely. And what really works for me is to understand that that dark part, in a way, is just a little kid. That's how I see it. I mean, we come in with these little children, and they want things. They want love. They want approval. They want a pat on the head. They want recognition. They want what makes them feel good. You know, they want these things. And I don't know about you, but in my inner world with my little kid, when she doesn't get what she wants, sometimes she gets like, I want that, and I want that right now. And she gets real kind of demanding and, you know,
So what you just described was that that 6-year-old in me that ran my life for the first 30 years of my life, exactly. Or more, right? It's like,
right, exactly. And that little inner 6-year-old, I still have her, and I write about her in the book. And she also is the one that I say, you know, dances on mountaintops and soars with birds and, you know, talks to angels and all of that too. So she's got both sides. But rather than, you know, beating myself up for having that demanding little part inside, it's just like, oh, she's a little girl, she needs something. What can I give her in this moment to help her feel better? How can I hug her, love her, hold her, or, you know, make her feel better so that she can relax and let go, and the higher part of me can run the life now and direct me to move forward in a way that's going to be beneficial to both myself and to others.
we actually have to kind of give it the full range of love, don't we? Including the discipline that kind of goes along with raising a child.
Exactly.
But with love, not with you know, that trying to get rid of.
Right. Just with love, it's like, okay, well, you need to go out and take a little break and you know, go play or do something fun. Okay, well, we're going to do that, but let's.
Yeah, we lost your video again, so you're going to find that Tom is trying to bring you back on with your video. It looks like the internet connection is a problem this evening, is what's going on. And you never know from one evening to the next one, you might have that, or what you're, you know, I don't know what kind of connection you've got.
I usually have a good connection, but one never knows.
Oh, gosh, isn't that the truth? We can have 30 shows that is no problem at all, and then we'll get one that just plagues us the whole evening.
So are we?
We're still going with the show. He's going to try and contact you, I believe, with the video, for the video portion of it. But in the meantime, tell us why you used the dragon metaphor.
You know, I used the dragon because my research of the dragon was leading me to connect it to the earth. And the earthly realm, the physical body, has needs, it has desires, it wants things. When we get into trouble down here on planet Earth, we don't get into trouble so much because of our spiritual natures. It's more our desire nature that can lead us down difficult paths if we follow, you know, that inner child without balancing it with higher understanding or with the adult part of ourselves. And so when I started looking more into the dragon, I was really surprised to find in Western religious tradition, especially, that the dragon and the devil, interchangeable, right? I don't know.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Why is that? You know, in Eastern culture, the dragon is revered. Chinese, they love their dragons. Dragons are often found on the outside of temples, guarding the treasures within. So I started really looking at the metaphor. What do dragons do? Why are they bad, according to the Western tradition? And it's really all about power. And so for me, it was a misunderstanding of the possibilities of power in our life, according to Western religious traditions, and the feminine as well. When we understand power and when we use power in service of the higher, it's a beautiful thing. And there's nothing wrong with enjoying the pleasures and treasures of planet Earth. I love being on the Earth. I love being connected with nature and with trees and flowers and birds and animals and rhythms and dancing and, you know, just moving in my body. It's an incredibly wonderful thing. So it's a matter of being really aware of what the body is, and when that energy and the power of the what I call the dragon gets taken over by personal need to the point that you're willing to put your personal need on top of anything else and go out there and do things that are detrimental just because you're desirous of something. You need sex, or you need food, or you need money, or, whatever it is that you think you need, what are you willing to do for it? When you're willing to go out there and do things that are against society and against other people just to fulfill your own needs, your dragon's out of control.
Absolutely. And you were talking about the fact that you deal really with energy, and another way to talk about energy is, of course, power, because we need power. It powers us. We, have the ability to do whatever we do, whatever it's always required on, whether we're thinking or walking or doing physical or mental or even emotional. So, what I've come to understand, Shaeri, is that knowing where the source of that power is hugely important, and then the job becomes learning to use it rightly, which is what I just heard you describe.
Exactly. And to me, the source of the power is in the divine.
Absolutely.
I write so much. The first part of my book is really about coming to understand the power that is within you. What are your personal powers? How do you use them? For example, personal powers are like sexuality is a power. So if you happen to be a person that carries a lot of sexuality and other people find you sexually attractive, that's a power. You can use that positively, or you can use it negatively. You can use it to manipulate people and get your own personal needs met with no consideration about the other person at all. If you're really super smart, that's a power. You can use your intelligence to, bring success to yourself in the world, or you can use your intelligence to do harm. Even nurturing. It's one of those nights.
You just hit shut down. So he's going to bring you back where we're at.
Okay, I'm calling you.
I think Tom thought he was doing the mute on your end, and what he did was hit the hang up button.
Well, you're really smart to do the landline thing, so.
Yeah, well, especially on Tom's off nights,
The first three were me.
So I'm going to, all right, so anyway, so these powers, we all have these powers, and the question is, how do you use them? And are you aware of how you're using your power? Sometimes when we're really wounded inside, we have a really hurt little child that is really hungry for love and attention, respect, whatever like that, we can be using our power negatively and not even be aware of it.
Absolutely.
A huge amount of my work is just about bringing self-awareness. Lots of exercises in the book just to help you notice, what are you doing right now? What are you saying? What are you thinking? What's going on in your own head? I write a lot about the inner judge, and the inner judge is a part inside of us that creates horrible problems for people. That voice inside that's just beating up on that poor little kid. So it's kind of an interesting dance to become aware of your dragon and how you might have power and be misusing it, and at the same time not to judge yourself for it, right?
Absolutely.
If you do judge yourself, you'll never let yourself see it.
Yeah, because this whole idea of judgment is an interesting one, in that sometimes I think the judgment that in the harshness that we put on ourselves is so we pay a price so we can continue doing whatever we're doing rather than quit. Some things we just need to stop doing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's no way to get what we want or to grow spiritually until we stop those things.
Yes, and the thing of it is what I've discovered, the judge also carries often rules about what you should be doing. So it may know very well that you need to stop smoking, or you need to stop overeating, or you need to stop being addicted to sex or porn, or whatever it is that's going on in your life that from a higher perspective is problematic. But here's the piece. If you take that judge and make him a disciplinarian with a whip, and you start beating yourself up, you must do this, you must do this, you must do this, what I found in my own personal life is I had a very strong inner rebel that could could win on top of the disciplinarian every time.
Yes.
The disciplinarian could never win, force that part of me into submission. And the only thing that allowed me to change was to start opening my heart and giving that part of me that had the need. For me, it's cookies. I write about it in my book. I just like sweets and, anything sweet. Cookies.
Yeah, chocolate and cookies, I understand that one very well.
Oh, makes that little girl happy inside, but not good for me. I mean, even got to the point where when I eat sugar, that my eyes glaze over. I get immediately tired. It's almost like I'm allergic to it, right? So it's almost like poison to me. But still, that one part of me didn't care. It's like, I don't care if you're going to feel bad. I'm going to eat a cookie anyway.
Absolutely.
Right? Like that. And so the only way to start to get that part to relax and come in alignment to what's best for the whole of me. So everybody else in me, all my other parts, and my higher self, my body, everyone else is going, we don't need cookies, they're not good for us. So, but just to allow, to breathe, to really say, hey, I really feel you've got a need there. What is the need underneath that need? What's really deeper? Yeah, you want the cookie, but underneath the cookie, is it some love? You need a hug? You need some space? You need to cry? What is the deeper need that needs to be addressed? And that comes from allowing yourself to feel and from connecting to, like, the nurturing mother part. What do you need, honey? What do you need? And that honey being me, or that honey being you talking to yourself.
Right.
So that was the piece I needed. And you're a male, and maybe the disciplinarian works different for you. I don't know, But
No, I think we're talking the same kind of thing. I almost always find that, there are times where it's the addictive part of me that's at work on me. But that really is the same thing, It's looking for some way to either escape some part of me or to resolve some issue that a cookie hasn't got a darn thing to do with.
Right, exactly. And that's awareness, a deep body awareness, deep emotional awareness, deep presence to the slew of energies that are moving through our system on a daily basis that, often we don't even have time to stop and be present to, right?
Well, I think that really strikes a key that's really important. And I think thinking that I don't have time to be present, I'm not sure about that, because don't you think that's really the job, is to learn how to be present every moment?
Absolutely. And, there's different, what's important, and I write about this in my book also, there's different levels that we can be present to. So obviously, right now, I'm present to you, George. I'm listening to you and responding to you and being aware of this process that we're going through, this interview. There may be things that are going on at deeper levels with my physical body, or, maybe in other parts of the house. Or there's other things that could be happening, but I'm focused here now. So the question is, how expanded are we going to be, or how focused are we going to be in terms of our awareness? And when I'm exploring what's going on at a deep emotional level inside of me, for example, in meditation, if then I'm going to allow my awareness to expand, to go deeper inside and notice what's happening in there on an energetic level. Whereas if I'm reading a book, okay, I'm present to the book. I'm focused there. If I'm writing a paper, I'm present to what I'm writing. So there's different ways that we can be present, and it's just a matter of recognizing how you want to focus yourself and at what level you want your awareness to be expanded to.
Well, yeah, and that's hugely important, because the power that we're talking about, as human beings, we access that through our will.
Yes.
And we control the will through our focus.
Yeah.
So if I'm not using my focus, my will can be doing all kinds of things, and I can get repercussions I don't want.
Exactly.
I don't know about you, but I've had enough bloody noses. I'd rather be aware of what that wall I'm about to run into.
Yes, that's very true. And for me also, I want to allow what I call the divine will to begin to have a say in what I do as well. I choose to turn my focus toward the divine through a meditation process, or to turn my focus to the inner and find a place of silence. Those types of choices allow me to shift my vibrational field in such a way that I end up growing and feeling better when I orient myself that way, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to orient myself to some cookies or to, something to watch on TV. I do that as well, but as much as I can, I want to orient myself to the divine, because I find doing that brings me the most reward, and that's just the main reason why I choose it. But it is a choice.
It's an absolute choice. I, like you, started meditation. I started meditating, I guess it was 1975 or 6. Transcendental meditation is where I began. And, now it's come to a place where meditation has become a working part of my mind. It's just, you start to, you have meditation in many, many different kinds of ways. I really hate to think about where my inner life would be, in my outer life for that matter, were it not for meditation. It amazes me what can happen in just sitting quietly.
Quietly. And once you learn to quiet your mind, and I know people have trouble with this, but you've been doing it for a long time, and I have as well, and it gets easier, then I can go to that silent place anytime. I don't have to set up a formal practice. It can be, walking, driving, closing my eyes for a moment at the computer. Anytime I can just silence the mind, and in that space of silence, you create an opening for this divinity to come through. And I actually write about that in my book. I provide a lot of exercises for people who want to start to create that opening. And that opening will help heal the inner judge, heal the inner child. I found I wanted to take the energy of the divine directly into my body, through the crown chakra, directly down, and deep inside, and actually allow the divine to touch the part of me that's hurting. And it's a literal healing when you open yourself to be touched by something of the higher. But it requires a willingness to be vulnerable. Not necessarily vulnerable to anyone else, but vulnerable to yourself.
Yeah, and we do defend ourselves from ourselves, don't we?
Absolutely. And if you can't be intimate with yourself, who can you be intimate with? Really, nobody.
There was another thing happened for me in meditation, and I see that happen for you, and you talk about it in kind of a different manner, which I want to come to. But meditation helped me to realize that there was a part of me that claimed my body, my spirit, my mind, my soul, that's who I was. That I wasn't, like this body. And you go into talking about identifying, with our emotions or with a part of us, and thinking that's who we are. Talk to us about that a bit.
This was such a huge lesson that I got from my mother. She would use the word "you're identified," and I think it originated from psychosynthesis. I've since tried to do some research to discover where that terminology first came from. I don't know, but she would say, if I would call her, for example, and I had a fight with a boyfriend, and I'm crying, I did this, and he did that, he's so mean. Like, you're identified, and I didn't know what she was talking about. I was clueless. So finally one day, she was yelling at me that I'm identified, and all of a sudden, I got it. I saw that there was a part of me that was above the emotional part of me, kind of looking down at it, and could see the emotional part that was crying, but I wasn't completely caught in the crying anymore. There was a part that was crying, but there was also a part that was watching the crying.
Yes.
That starts to create space. And the space then is an ability to become, you could call it the observer, you could call it awareness, you could call it witness. It's a consciousness that can perceive all these other aspects of ourselves. And that way you can perceive the aspect, but when you're not identified with it, it's easier to allow the energy to change. So once I cease to be all identified with the emotional part, so if someone hurts my feelings, I might notice that that little girl is hurt, and she maybe even wants to cry or something, and I can see that and even maybe allow that to happen. But I know that that's just an aspect, that's just a part. And so as soon as that energy moves through, okay, it can be done. Now you move on, you let go, you go to the next thing. You're not caught in it. You're not hooked up to it. You are the freedom of spirit, the freedom of the observer, the freedom of the witness, and living the life, not denying the life in any way, but not so caught in the life that the life limits you. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, well, yeah, and moving into to that witness part of us really is kind of the first stage of enlightenment, isn't it?
It is, and enlightenment is such a loaded word.
Oh, yeah, I know, and it's like it carries all kinds of weird stuff with it, doesn't it?
It does,
But awakening, I think, is a better word, really.
awakening is a much better word. Although, once you do start to get some space around these things, there is a literal experience of light
Yes.
that comes in, and you can feel it. So there is. But I don't think it's like, okay, now you're enlightened and now you are.
No, we tend to want to make it very magical
Yeah,
and
it's
very pixie dust.
evolution, opening, awakening.
Well, there's an old book that was, I think it was written in the 70s, but called Chop Wood, Carry Water.
Yes.
Are you familiar?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it really talks about that. Like what do you do before enlightenment? You chop wood and carry water. And what do you do after enlightenment? You chop wood and carry water. And that's really, really important. Otherwise, we can fall into that spiritual arrogance that will just keep you from any further development. It keeps you stagnant. Let's talk a bit about. See, one of the things I think maybe the main thing is, under the Delphi, the Oracle of Delphi, wasn't there? I think there was a plaque above the temple that said, "Know thyself."
Know thyself. Yeah, I've seen that. I put that in my book, and I've been seeing it in so many books. It's such a truism.
Oh.
You have to know yourself. You have to know who you are inside, and we are more than one self. We have so many different aspects to us, and if you don't believe me, you could just say, okay, which part of you, wants to go to the restaurant and order, a grilled chicken breast and a salad, and which part would like to order the hamburger and fries? Do you have a part that wants to order the hamburger and fries? Maybe you're beyond that, but
No, my part wants both.
it wants both. Which part, wants to go and play all the time, and which one wants to work? It's like there's different parts of ourselves that have different desires and different ways that they want to be. There's the judge, there's the child, there's the rebel, there's the clown. There's all these different archetypes, you could call them, and that takes us back to astrology as well, because an astrology chart is a great way to see what archetypes you come in particularly gifted with. And those are like your personal powers. Those are like your traits that you can use for the betterment of yourself and others, or for the detriment.
Well, yeah, and I think if we don't identify the reality that there are many selves within us, we end up getting like unexpected results based on actions that we take, expecting something totally different, and we don't understand what went on, and it's confusing for us. So, for me, coming to understand like more about myself, but I think it's an ongoing process. What do you think?
I feel it's an ongoing process too.
Yeah, I don't think I have arrived.
No, I know I haven't arrived, but it's so much easier.
Yeah, a lot easier.
I understand it, and I know how to get back. What I found for myself through my work, and my work is what I share in my book, so I call it a spiritual practice, right? Practice means it's something that you keep doing and doing because you want to.
Absolutely. That's a bit frightening when you think about a doctor and his practice, but in this case,
but it's true, I mean, sometimes the ones that have been doing it for quite a long time are better than the ones that are just getting started.
Yeah.
So, and that's the way that it works. We practice and we get better. And so what I've found for myself is the ability to come back to center so much more quickly and so much more easily. It's not that I don't get thrown off center. It's not that I don't, have a desire and have it get tripped up or get in a spat with an intimate, like a sister. Sometimes sister stuff comes up.
Sure.
But I'm able to come back to the center more quickly and more easily, and come back to the place of love and find a place of allowance. I think if there's anything that I've learned in all of this that would be the main piece that I want to pass on and share with other people, it's just to allow yourself to be where you are in this moment, the part of you that's wise and knows it all, and the part of you that is scared and doesn't know nothing, all of those parts, all together, all at once, just allowing them. And this allowing, for me, comes from the heart. It's the great allower. And it's also the great transformer in a way. And it just allows it by letting it be how it is.
I'll tell you what, I've got a whole list of things left here I wanted to talk with you about, but we're down to about 3 or 4 minutes, and a couple of things I'd like to do. I'd like, if there's anything that we haven't touched on that you would really like to talk about, I'd like you to take a couple of minutes to do that, and then tell us where we can find your book. And I'm going to hold it up here for my audience, Dancing with Your Dragon, The Art of Loving Your Unlovable Self. I can't even begin to tell our viewers just how important that is and how that will change your life. Shaeri's book is really well written. I want to tell you something, Shaeri. I've done a lot of shadow work, a lot of inner work, and a lot of all of this stuff. In the process of reading your book, I've had this thing that I've been trying to get an answer to, and I couldn't get it. And it wasn't that the answer was here, but what you said triggered for me the answer. And so I had a really nice experience while reading your book. It was excellent. Thank you.
That makes me really happy. I guess the other piece that I would want to address, we brought it up a little bit, but I would just want to remind people to really pay attention also to the judge inside, and to recognize that the judge that's inside their own heads that's telling people that they're not good enough in whatever way, too fat, too old, too not enough money, not successful enough, whatever the particular thing is, that voice, that judge, is talking to your little child inside. And your little child has a direct connection to that voice. And when the child hears that voice, it shrinks emotionally. So the voice of the judge is not helping you to make a change. And I really encourage people to, instead, when they hear that voice, just put your hand on your heart and take a deep breath. And ask yourself, is it really true? And can you just let it be the way that it is and allow yourself to be just the way you are? And through the acceptance, if you do want to change, change can come. But allow the acceptance to be there. I don't want to go beyond time, but dancingwithyourdragon.com, that's my website. I'm also a hypnotherapist, so if you have any particular issue that you're trying to work through and you want a hand with it, I can help you with that. There's a little page on my website called Hypnotherapy, and you can read about the work that I do. And, I'm just delighted to be with you, George. What a great time.
Oh, yeah, it's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed it, too. One of the things, I mentor quite a few men and some women, and, talking about that, the judge, I think is so important. I have this little thing that I use to remind them of that. I suggested to them that they be kind in their mind and gentle in the mental. And
mental and kind in the mind. I'm going to steal those.
You're welcome to them. I hope you use them and people find benefit, because I'm looking for some good karma.
No, you got it, George. Just what you're doing is good karma.
Okay, well, you've been a sweetheart. I've enjoyed our talk, and one of these days I'm going to get out there to Sedona again. I'm going to look you up. I'm going to want a cup of coffee. If you get here to Sarasota, be sure and contact me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
You have a good night.
George, bye now.
Bye now. Well, what a great guest. I have thoroughly enjoyed Shaeri Richards, and I'm really serious about the book. She has not just the information, but some ways that you can do some work on your own with her book that will take you into a much freer space. So be sure and come back next week. And in the meantime, don't forget to accentuate the positive and have a fantastic week. Be sure to hop on over to the Spiritual Broadcast Network. It's the go-to place for all things spiritual. You'll discover internet television shows that you won't find anywhere else. You can also choose from hundreds of hours of spiritual documentaries and movies. You'll enjoy on-demand and live internet television programming 24/7. Best of all, we add new dramas, comedies, talk, and reality shows and more on a daily basis. So why spend countless hours searching the web when you can quickly find just what you want on the Spiritual Broadcast Network?